From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
It's harvest time in the South.
We were so hot and dry this year, as soon as you turned the pivot off, it was time to turn the pivot back on.
We head to Louisiana to check on yield potential as the Pro Farmer Crop Tour goes in search of better crops in the East.
I'm Michelle Rook on the eastern leg of the Pro Farmer Crop Tour here in eastern Iowa, one of the few spots that may have a little bit better yield potential than last year.
And the West.
Is Minnesota the garden spot of the western leg of Pro Farmer Crop Tour this year? We'll have that story coming up today on AgDay.
Are they finding any bin busters as the tour wraps up in Minnesota? Right now on AgDay.
The 2022 Pro Farmer Crop Tour on AgDay is brought to you by Pioneer. For cutting-edge agronomic advice for your farm, count on your local Pioneer team for year-round crop management insights. Pioneer, an American seed brand since 1926. And by Pivot Bio Proven 40. Predictable, productive, weatherproof. Turn to a better nitrogen with Pivot Bio Proven 40. Learn more at pivotbio.com.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. The Pro Farmer Crop Tour has wrapped up, and later today, Pro Farmer will release its own production estimates for corn and soybeans. And while it will use numbers from the tour to come up with those final state-by-state yields, it's also looking at a host of other factors. But before those numbers are released, we need to update you on day 3 of the tour, the results from Illinois. Scouts finding a tour-wide average of 190.71 bushels an acre for corn. That's down close to 3% from last year. USDA in its August report calling for 203 bushels to the acre, actually 1 bushel higher than a year ago. Now, many folks were expecting big things from Illinois after last year's bumper corn crop. Now, I asked Pro Farmer editor Brian Grady about that during Crop Tour Live online.
It's a good Illinois corn crop. Just where's the wow? And you know, the ear counts, they're up a little bit. The grain length is down a little bit. It's more consistent, much more consistent than what we saw in Ohio and in Indiana. But there's no wow factor this year in Illinois. So when you don't have that, you're going to have everything be really, really the same and very consistent through the harvest season.
Brian, does the nation need Illinois to really pull this corn crop up this year?
Based on what Chip's found out west so far, yeah, we do. We
Right.
need Iowa and Illinois to pull it up. So we do need some wow factor.
Checking the state's soybeans, calculations are in at 1249.7 pods in a 3 by 3 foot square, also down more than 2% from last year. But what scouts are finding on Crop Tour appears to be moving markets right now, with corn futures climbing to 2-month highs earlier this week on supply concerns. Now, analysts specifically pointing to the latest feedback about western Iowa and Illinois.
I do believe this year that the crop tour has had an impact on the corn market in particular, and that's something that I don't ever really recall seeing. The corn market typically doesn't rally during crop tour week, and if it does, it doesn't rally very much. I've just never seen a correlation between the tour and action in the market to any real significant degree, but I think we're seeing it this year.
There's also this article from Bloomberg saying there is growing concern about a national corn shortage after numbers gathered during the tour showed a potential drop in yields in South Dakota, Ohio, Nebraska, Indiana, and now Illinois and portions of Iowa. Now, some scouts expressing more optimism about the soybean crop. So crews on the western leg were hoping for better news as they took off from Spencer, Iowa Thursday morning, surveying southern Minnesota on their way to the tour's final destination, Rochester. As Farm Journal's Tyne Morgan reports, they may have finally found the corn they've been looking for.
Well, Clinton, it did take all week, but scouts finally found the bright spot of the western leg of Pro Farmer Crop Tour this year.
Are you ready for corn?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go.
As scouts suited up and hit the fields Thursday morning, it was a cooler and wetter start in Minnesota.
The one thing that impressed me most is the ear count.
Tim Gregerson found stronger ear counts and better yields.
Here in southern Minnesota, the ear count is right there. It is better than in Iowa on the samples we have taken today.
Ear counts were solid, but so was another major factor for yield.
This has got more kernel depth than 3/4 of the samples I've taken on the tour this year.
Gregerson says southern Minnesota's corn crop definitely looks to be above average. but not perfect.
We are seeing a little bit of tip back, and that's a little bit, caution sign there, but we're still pulling very good yields out of Minnesota.
Some of those issues came from pockets of dry weather this summer, but for Minnesota farmer Brad Nelson, a wetter spring and later planting dates has not seemed to hurt his yields.
We had a really good week of weather after we planted. It was up in 8 days. It all came up.
It's southern Minnesota's soybeans that seemed to be a bit of a disappointment on Thursday.
All summer long, I just didn't feel like beans had the oomph to really get over the top.
Field after field, that's something scouts noticed as they calculated the soybean samples.
Pod counts, some of them aren't even 1,000. The beans themselves are short, and the pod count is a little bit light this year.
Plump pods were a plus in Minnesota as more moisture could push yields even higher. But area farmers are also concerned about disease pressure that's starting to pop up.
A little bit of SDS here and there. Whether it'll be a big factor in yield or not remains to be seen.
Well, Clinton, as you just saw, scouts did find a good corn crop here in Minnesota, possibly a record in some areas. But will it make up for the poor crop that scouts found on the first couple days of crop tour in South Dakota as well as Nebraska this year? Reporting for AgDay, I'm Tyne Morgan.
All right, thanks, Tyne. Now, the eastern leg of the tour also hoping to see better crops as scouts traveled through eastern Iowa on their way to Minnesota as well. AgDay's Michelle Rook reports scouts were a bit more optimistic.
Here in eastern Iowa, corn yields have the potential to exceed last year and maybe even soybeans with the late season rain. The question is, can the east make up for the west?
This looks like typically what it would in a good year for this area.
Pro Farmer editor Brian Grady was finding much better corn in eastern Iowa fields than the rest of the tour with solid ear populations and grain length.
What the noticeable thing is the corn is heavier than some of the samples we pulled further to the east. So more typical Iowa corn. We haven't seen as much tip back.
He says the difference is more favorable weather.
They had hot and dry, but they didn't have the extended periods of hot and dry, and as a result, it's showing in the samples that we pull.
Farmers have also had less pest pressure than 21, including tar spot and corn rootworm. So they're optimistic about corn.
Yeah, we're going to be above trend line. We typically range in yield from 200 to 230, and there's the outside chance of getting 250.
And Grady thinks that may push corn yields over last year.
I think we'll be probably above. There were some holes in eastern Iowa last year, especially when you got up into northeast Iowa.
15. Grady also believes there's plenty of yield potential in the soybeans.
The pods are there, as long as they get the moisture and the finishing.
Yields may not exceed 2021 in the east, where there were some 90-plus beans, but farmers think they'll at least be above their APHs.
It could be reasonably well. 55, maybe 60. And I'm talking whole field averages, not spots.
I would say that if we could catch a rain in here, we could fill out these, what I call the bonus bushels. I really think that we could have a yield that I think could resemble in that 75 range.
The big question on both corn and beans is, can the east make up for the problems in western Iowa? Grady says corn is a real shot. It's too early to know on beans. In eastern Iowa, I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Again, Pro Farmer will be taking the information gathered during crop tour along with several other factors and come up with what it predicts will be this year's corn and soybean production numbers. And join us later today online at 2:30 Eastern, 1:30 Central when we release those numbers. To watch, make sure you follow us on Facebook and Twitter. We're also continuing to track this heavy rain in the south, a flash flood emergency across parts of Mississippi. One mayor saying the rain in his city has far exceeded the levels they saw during Hurricane Katrina. Rising waters are turning roads into rivers across parts of the state. The water's even strong enough to sweep part of a train off its tracks. Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joining us now. Matt, those rains aren't done with the south just yet.
Yeah, Clinton, that's right. More rain is expected across parts of the south as we head through the upcoming week. But let's take a look again at our root zone because this changed a lot over the past couple of weeks. You can really see where we've got a lot of moisture there, really from Arizona through New Mexico, parts of the deep south as well, including Texas, which has been extremely dry lately. And now we're seeing a lot of rain down there, and we're going to expect more of that as we head through this week. But let's show you the latest drought monitor and how it's kind of updated over the last month. And if you notice Texas, it gets extremely dry in parts of Texas. Extreme to exceptional drought conditions have been present there for over the past month or two. And now look at this past really week. We've seen so much rain in North Texas and even in the panhandle of Texas, where we're slowly starting to erode some of those drought conditions. And that's going to continue to be the case through the upcoming week, because look at this, the next 10 days, still expecting a ton of rain through parts of Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and along the Gulf Coast as well. So we'll continue to be tracking the improving drought conditions, and as we head towards the end of the growing season here, hopefully shortly. And here's the corn we've been looking for on Crop Tour. AgDay's Michelle Rook continuing to follow the eastern leg. She says pro farmers Brian Grady says that this is what Iowa corn should look like. She reports that they saw more than 200 plus corn on Thursday. Definitely an improvement. I'll have more on your forecast coming up.
Will rain in the southern plains help more winter wheat acres go in? We'll discuss that next in analysis. And could rain in the south impact harvest that's already underway? We'll check in on Louisiana.
Randy Martinson with Martinson Ag joins us with analysis. And Randy, we've had such a wicked pullback off the June contract highs in Kansas City wheat. Do you think that's going to maybe deter some plantings of winter wheat here this fall?
You know, I don't. I still think that the producer will go in and plant, more winter wheat this fall, mainly because, they are talking about getting some rain, that we're going to be looking at a little bit better conditions for planting. And I think that'll help encourage a little bit more acres to go in. Of course, they're looking at double cropping as well. So I think they'll try to put their first their wheat crop in. They're going to have very little risk in that other than the cost of the seed, and then wait to see how things go as we go into next summer or next spring, once the crop starts to come out of dormancy again.
But crop insurance really plays a big part of this, doesn't it?
That's the biggest part of it, is the fact that they're going to, the nice thing about winter wheat down in the southern plains, it gets bound right away in the fall once it's planted. So they have an insurance program that's going to help protect that crop. So if it does fail, they can get the insurance indemnity and then go in with a second crop.
But Kansas City wheat off the contract highs from June high to the low in August so far has been like $5.70. Boy, that's a crushing blow to wheat producers, isn't it?
It is. I mean, there's no question about it. Wheat has taken a pretty big hit, and all three of the exchanges have seen, a huge decline since our top has come into play. Part of it's, lower demand, but we are also looking at a fall time frame where it's going to be interesting to just see how much wheat Ukraine gets planted, and I think that'll help drive the prices next spring.
And spring wheat harvest going, so we'll still see a little more harvest pressure there, you think?
I think we will. I mean, yields are coming in fairly decent. I do think we'll see a little more pressure come into the spring wheat market, and I think a lot of eyes are going to be focused on Ukraine.
Okay, thanks so much for joining us, Randy Martinson, Martinson Ag. We have ag weather coming up.
AgDay is brought to you by EndZone from Farm Shop MFG, which allows you to rehydrate your soybeans from 10 to 13%. On a 20,000 bushel bin, that's an extra semi-load added to your bottom line. Order your EndZone fan by August 29th and receive 7% off.
Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joining us, taking a look at Drought Monitor. Matt, we've really seen some improvement here through the south and into the southwest, where we've had some epic rain is kind of how I'm going to describe it.
Oh yeah, and all of that rain caused a lot of flooding in parts of Texas and Louisiana, and unfortunately we're going to get more of that, but in the long run it will continue to help drought conditions improve in parts of the south. And you can see where those improvements have been, parts of Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, and then right across northern parts of Texas, where they've seen a lot of rain over the past really couple of days, and that caused some flooding down in that part of the country. But expecting more rain, and that is slowly going to eat away at these drought conditions if we can keep it possible. Now over the next couple of months, it is going to dry out just a little bit, but still looking very good as those drought conditions will likely improve. And again, where we've seen those extreme to exceptional drought drought conditions, North Texas, the Texas Panhandle, and then across parts of the Southwest really starting to improve, especially in parts of Arizona. So that's going to continue to be the case. And even over the next couple of days, a little bit more rain possible there in the Southwest. And then along the Gulf Coast, continuing to see those showers and thunderstorms as that stalled out front starts to pull off to the east. And then some more scattered showers here up across parts of the upper Midwest and the northern plains as well, as we're expecting more of those showers. That'll be with this system here, and the high pressure that's in control down to the south. So it'll keep any big system out of Texas for the next few days, help things dry out just a little bit from all of that flooding. And then we've got some of those showers and thunderstorms there pretty much every afternoon as that kind of higher elevation low just kind of sticks around. As the fronts pull off to the east, this is the only system that we've got to worry about here. We're going to be worried about some scattered showers and some thunderstorms there, but still going to be warm and humid across the middle part of the country and across the Gulf Coast, where even tomorrow temperatures will be in the 80s and 90s, maybe even nearing that 100-degree mark as we head out there for tomorrow. And that's all because of this right here. We've got that jet stream really starting to kind of stick around through the middle part of the country, and that's going to stick around at least through the middle of next week, and we'll continue to track that right here on Ag Day. That's a look around the country. Now let's take a look at the weather where you live. Greenville, Maine, morning showers and afternoon heavy rain, a high near 68 degrees. Crowley, Louisiana, scattered thunderstorms, a high near 86 degrees. And heading to Stockton, California, mostly sunny and hot, a high near 94.
Ag Day is brought to you by MetLife Investment Management's Agricultural Finance Group. MetLife Investment Management is positioned to help you grow your business with a competitive farm, ranch, and agribusiness loan. To learn more, visit investments.metlife.com/agriculture.
Beef packer margins right now down a whopping 87% from the same week a year ago. This is according to the Sterling Beef Profit Tracker. It says feed yard margins, they moved higher with last week's rally in cash prices. Cattle feeders saw average profits of $197 per head the week ending August 20th. That price was 17% higher than the same week a year ago. Now, estimated beef packer margins were $150 per head. That's down about $32 per head from the previous week and down from a year ago when prices exceeded $1,100 per head. Retailer Whole Foods is facing a lawsuit over its beef marketing slogan, "No antibiotics ever." The suit, filed in California by 3 consumer groups and 1 animal welfare nonprofit, it says that statement is false. The suit claims recent independent tests found beef at Whole Foods did contain antibiotic residue, and it's asking the company to correct its marketing and pay damages to shoppers who overpaid. Now, neither Whole Foods nor its parent company Amazon have commented. It may be crop potential for Corn Belt farmers right now, but it's actual yields for farmers in Louisiana. We'll hit the combine next. Believe it or not, crop tour scouts did happen across a few combines starting harvest in Nebraska. Meanwhile, in Louisiana, corn harvest is near the halfway point. LSU Ag Center's Craig Gautreaux reports.
With the calendar saying August, it's not unusual to see combines racing through fields of Louisiana farmland. Corn farmers started harvesting their crop at the end of July, and while the yields are good, the yields won't be as good as last year.
Our average state yield is going to be down this year, mainly due to hot and dry conditions that the corn crop, went under this year. That plant took a lot more energy to sustain itself due to these hot and stressful conditions.
Those hot and stressful conditions cause farmers to irrigate their crops often.
We were so hot and dry this year, as soon as you turned the pivot off, it was time to turn the pivot back on.
Corn requires a significant amount of nitrogen fertilizer, and the price for that fertilizer was extremely high. This led to at least a 10% reduction in acreage.
Last year we had around 560,000 acres of corn. This year we're right below that 500,000 mark, so acres did, drop, and we lost a good bit of acres to beans. However, our cotton acres did increase this year.
Foster says farmers should not burn the stover left over after the harvest because they are losing organic matter and valuable nutrients.
100% of your nitrogen is lost when burning. around 80% of your sulfur, as well as your potential to lose your P and K.
The hot, dry conditions reduced disease issues, so very few farmers had to apply fungicides during the year. With the LSU Ag Center, this is Craig Gotro reporting.
All right, thanks, Craig. And don't forget to join us online at 2:30 Eastern, 1:30 Central as Pro Farmer releases its production estimates. That's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, thanks for watching. Have a great day.